Hey guys, this is Tauna. Today we're going to be talking about the Tarkir Precon Commanders. They've all been revealed today, and we're going to talk about which ones I think are hype and which ones I think are meh. So all of them are being shown today, and some of them are looking really, really amazing, while others just not so much, in my opinion. Keep in mind that there are 5 precons this time around, so there's something there for everyone, whether you like, spell slinging, whether you like creatures, whether you like, just big stompy, there is something for everyone. Keep in mind that this is obviously going to be in my opinion. I'm going to be passing it along to you guys. I'm going to share, about the actual creatures and everything like that as well. But it's, ultimately my opinion whether I think something's hype or not. You let me know if you disagree with it. So let's start out with the Abzan ones here. First up, we have Falathor the Steadfast. So she's a classic kind of wall/defender commander. She makes it so that each creature you controlled assigns their damage equal to their toughness rather than their power. Makes it so that the creatures with defender can attack, etc. She can also sacrifice creatures to draw cards, and then you discard cards equal to its power. So if you're running something that's, like a 0/7, then now you are drawing 7 cards and discarding 0, which isn't too bad. You can also do that at instant speed, so as long as she's not tapped, you can do it, which is interesting and nice. The other thing to kind of keep in mind here is that you can run like a reanimation package. You can bring things back from the graveyard as well. So you can sack a wall, bring it back. It's also, just sacrifice any creature. So if you've got wall tokens or, creature tokens, you can sacrifice those too, which is very, very cool. Honestly, I kind of like her. I think she's a pretty decent kind of Abzan wall commander. We do have one previously, which was the tree back from the original Tarkir, I believe it was. This is a different option for it, not necessarily a better or worse option, but a kind of different option. In that precon as well, we've got Betor, Ancestor's Voice. So this is still a very interesting card in this deck because, like, if you have a look at this deck, it's all meant to be about toughness matters and stuff like that, but Betor doesn't really care about that. So he rewards both life gain and life loss. The life gain is rewarded by putting +1s onto a creature, and the life loss is rewarded by allowing you to be able to bring things back from the graveyard. So the reanimation, that part's less likely that you get a huge amount of value from it unless you have ways to gain life, lose life more often, whether it's, like a Phyrexian Arena or like Phyrexian Reclamation, that kind of stuff, to do stuff from your graveyard or do overall just kind of make yourself lose life. But the life gain, you can get some absolutely huge turns out here from lifelink. Again, it's a very interesting. This is a toughness matters deck. It does have toughness power than its strength, toughness power than its toughness bigger than its power. However, it's still a very interesting choice within this deck. I do like him as a commander though, just interesting within this kind of precon. We've got the Sultai one. So first up, we've got Kota Sibsig Champion. For some reason, they decided to make him way less hot than he is in the original card. To the point, I wasn't even sure that they were the same card originally. Like, even on the face here, like this here looks very, very different to this. Anyway, despite the fact they nerfed how hot he is, I also just don't really like his abilities. He gives you the opportunity to once per each of your turns, essentially kind of underworld breach a creature from your graveyard. It can get he can get pretty big if you're reanimating things or flashbacking things onto your board, bringing things back from your graveyard. He, gets the 2+1s from that. So he can kind of grow pretty decently big. But he weirdly also doesn't really fit the whole zombie druid thing that the precon says it does, right? Like this precon says, return with zombie druids. This doesn't really do zombie druids, which is weird. Kind of similar to like how we were talking about Betor before. It synergizes with the precon potentially, but not like he synergizes well with the precon, just doesn't synergize with that part of the precon for some reason. He does fit the whole, creatures leaving your graveyard reanimation or, exiling creatures from your graveyard stuff, though, with the second part here. We also have Tevel, the Balance Scale, and I think that, honestly, Tevel fits the precon a lot better. He has self-mill. Whenever you attack, you get to mill 3, then bring any land from your graveyard. So not necessarily one that you've just milled, any land from your graveyard back onto the battlefield tapped, and then create those black zombie druids. Again, I do think that he kind of fits, the part of the precon here better. This is more like a payoff for the precon rather than like the definition of the precon, I guess. Coaches does work really well with Tevel here because I'm pretty sure he procs it twice, where one, you remove things to cast the spell. And then when you actually cast the spell as well, it's going to get 2 procs. I'm pretty sure, because this is just whenever cards leave your graveyard. So that could be you exile them from your graveyard, you cast them from your graveyard, you know, picked them up and threw them across the room, or your little brother grabbed him and ate it. If it leaves the graveyard, boom, you get to get some zombie druids, which again fits the precon a lot better. So if you are liking this content so far, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share the video around, all that kind of stuff. Also, just make sure you check out all our other videos and Dragonstorm we're going to be doing. So we've got the Mardu Surge ones here. So this is going to be around making attacker tokens. So tokens that are coming in, attacking already. And then you get to sacrifice them. So you can see some like aristocrat style stuff here. So I've got Zergo's Storm Render here. So it's got Mobilize. He's got Mobilize 1, which is whenever he attacks, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature token. You're going to sacrifice that at the beginning of your next end step. And then he's also got whenever a creature token. So this will proc if, you know, 3 creature tokens leave at the same time. It's going to proc for each of those. You either get to draw a card if it's attacking, or you get to make each opponent lose a life. So you get to attack, you mobilize, you bring out, say, 5 different guys because you've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. And then after you attack and you get to your end step, you sacrifice all those, boom, now you're going to ping each person for 1 5 times. Really, really nice. I really like that. I really think it's really interesting. So there's just so many different ways to abuse this, whether it's, you know, additional combats to be able to mobilize additional times to be able to create a whole bunch more of these tokens, whether it's going to be you just, you know, chump block with your creature tokens and boom, now you get to draw cards. Cloning seems really bonkers here as well, because clones are creature tokens, right? And they always either exile or sacrifice at the, oh, not always, most of the time they exile or sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. So you can clone then, bring something out, then get additional value from it, which is really cool. And then you've also got, you know, your aristocrat payoffs. So if you don't want to, like, you know, have them sacrifice to their own triggers or exile to their own triggers, you can sacrifice them to, say, like an Ashnod's altar or anything else to then also get this ping, right? This ping here is really, really great because it just procs anytime that if they weren't attacking. You're going to get a bunch of different value from that. The other command here is Nerev Crackling Vanguard. So again, like I think each one kind of has one that synergizes really well with the precon, and then one that synergizes well with the precon, but not quite as much with the face of the precon. So Nerev kind of does this. He does impulse draw based off of the number of differently named tokens you control. So keep in mind that is all tokens. Clones count, creatures count, non-creatures, etc. will all worth it. You got food, boom, you got stuff. You got treasures, boom, you got stuff. So then you can cast any of those cards that you exiled anytime you attacked with a commander. And it's during any turn you attacked with the commander. So technically, like, as long as you've declared you're attacking with that commander, now you can start playing those cards. So you can do that during your combat phase. As long as they're like, you know, instants and sorceries and stuff. So he works really well in the 99 as well, because he doesn't necessarily need to be the commander. It's just whenever you attack with a commander. So, you know, if you got Zergo at the helm, then Nerev will still be able to use them. The token generation that he does, I think, is just kind of a bonus there to get you a differently named token of, you know, a goblin. And keep in mind stuff like, you know, if you've got stuff that creates soldier tokens and then you've got stuff that creates human soldier tokens, those are 2 differently named things. So that will get you an additional proc for Nerev. Then we've got the Temur one, which is probably going to be the most hype one. If you are pre-ordering one of these and you're worried about them selling out, this is the one that you would probably want to pre-order, because it is the one that I think is going to sell out the fastest, just looking at these face commanders, right? So first up, we've got Eshki Temur's Roar. I think this is arguably the most hyped of all the new commanders. It's just big benefits anytime you cast a creature spell. You want to turn your brain off? Sometimes I want to. And I would love to just be able to, you know, cast big things. I want to just cast big things. So depending on the power of the thing you cast, you could potentially put a +1 onto her, draw a card, and make her ping each opponent. And keep in mind, that's her dealing damage. So stuff like, you know, City on Fire and stuff will proc for it, and, you know, triple and stuff. We've got, you know, it's just simply cast big spells. Cast big creatures, She does big things. Very simple, very straightforward. It's also pretty easy to abuse as well because it's based off of their power. So if you've got like, a 6 cost power, that's like a 6 power thing that costs really cheap, you still get all of these procs there. It doesn't matter how much money you spend on it, as long as you cast it. You have to cast it. You can cast it for free though, if you wanted to, if you've got a way to be able to do that. And, you've got like, there's definitely some exile stuff within green and red there that you could cast stuff for free, be able to, make things cost cheaper. There's just so many ways to be able to abuse this. On the other hand, we've got Irene of the Unwritten. So if we have a look at the face part here, this is ramp mana, summon dragons. She doesn't really ramp mana or summon dragons, but she does kind of proc with those. But then Irene doesn't do it either, right? He doesn't ramp mana or... He does summon the dragons, though. So straight up, this is going to go into every single Miram and Dragon deck. 100%. Because it is whenever this creature attacks, or whenever your Urani attacks, you get a free dragon. You're going to look at the top 8 cards of your deck. You're going to be like, hey, look, I've got this 12/12 Earthquake Dragon. Boom, now it's on the battlefield. What? You don't know how to deal with that? Good luck, that's not my problem anymore. Have fun with this. And it's so easy to abuse this as well because you've got red in there, additional combats. Hellkite Charger is already a huge infinite piece with dragons. Like I've got it within my... I'm pretty sure I've got it within my Miram deck still. Because you could just create a huge, like infinite combo, just great, getting huge amounts of mana, swinging in, getting an additional combat. And now if you got Urani on the board, you're going to do that, but then you're also going to cheat out a dragon each time. Oh, what that? I attacked. Let me get my dragon. Oh, I attacked again? Oh, guess what? I get another dragon. Oh, you'll never guess what happens next when I attack. You just get to cheat out a huge amount of dragons. Both of these two, I just think, are the most hyped. And we'll get into that in a second, though, because we've got another precon before then. We've got the Jeskai precon here. So this one here is cast extra spells and then flurry spell effects. So interesting that flurry ended up being an actual keyword here, because I just thought it was, flurry, like just, you're doing lots of things, but it's actually a keyword. So flurry is whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you get some kind of proc. So Shiko and Narset is the commander here. They reward you for casting your second spell each turn by either giving you the ability to be able to copy it if it targets a permanent or player, or you get to draw a card. That's it. You get to either draw a card or copy it each turn. Now, there is ways to obviously be able to abuse this if you cast stuff with instant or give your cards flash and then cast them on other people's turns, which is probably what you want to be doing realistically, most likely with this deck as well. You want to be casting things, you want to be casting 2 spells each turn and most likely casting 2 spells each turn on everybody's turn rather than kind of just purely on your turn, casting like, a whole bunch of things and then you miss out on procs. You want to cast on everyone's turn. I think that she's basically like a less abusable and more fair version of Stella Lee, which is not necessarily great because Stella Lee is crazy great and everyone loves her, while Shiko and Narset just doesn't seem as abusable. You just like it's either draw a card once per turn or copy it once per turn. Even like what's her name? My wife has a commander, Alalia, I think her name is, the one otter from Bloomburrow that lets you copy the first instant sorcery or otter spell that you cast. That's even stronger than this, in my opinion. So being able to copy all the time is better, I think. You can tell one of the ones that I'm going to say is most meh. And then we've got Elshar Threefold Master. So they have Monk Link. Whenever they deal combat damage, create monks with prowess. 1/1 monks with prowess. So this is obviously going to be like a more combat focused spellslinger deck, right? Like you're swinging in, you want Elsha to be big, you're going to swing in with her, you're going to create a whole bunch of monks, and then the next turn you're going to do basically the same thing, cast a whole bunch of spells, get them big, and then you're going to swing in with more monks, and then the next spell more monks, etc. Just create this huge board of monk tokens that all are getting +1s, +1/+1, not counters, just +1/+1 until end of turn, based off of your spells that you're casting, as long as they're non-creature spells. So very Spellslinger go wide kind of stuff. There is definitely ways to be able to abuse this as well. You know, being able to do extra combats, being able to make it so that, you know, those monks that you're creating can tap for mana with stuff like Sorcerer's Class and stuff. However, I don't think it's as great as like just, you know, Spellslinger-y stuff. It gives you a nice commander for Spellslinger, but it's a Spellslinger commander that pays off with creating creatures. So you could do some really interesting stuff with this. Like, oh man, I just thought about it, like Magnus the Red. If you bring Magnus the Red along with this, yeah. So I'm gonna make a video that's going to be going over which cards you should be adding to these and buying as soon as possible, and that's going to be definitely one of them. So if I'm talking about the most hyped ones, in my opinion, we've got Baitor, we've got Tevel, we've got Zergo, and we've got Eshki. Now, obviously, I talked about what's his face, the other dragon here, Ureni, as well. I do think that Ureni's amazing, definitely kind of just off of the top of this list, but I think Ureni's like a commander that I would prefer to be in the 99, or like a card that I prefer to be in the 99 rather than be my commander. Still good as a commander though. So these are my opinions as to what I am most hyped about and what I've seen other people most hyped about and which ones I think are really, really cool. You'll notice that there's basically one from each precon. I think that there's a lot of really great ones in every precon here. These are not necessarily going to be the best commanders for these precons either. They are just the ones that I think are most hyped and most interesting and most cool. And then we've got the most met ones. So these are the ones that I'm a little bit kind of more down on, that I'm not a huge fan of, and I think that I would not really run as the commander for that deck. In the example of Kotus, like I think Kotus is great, but I think Tevel's just a better commander and, you know, more fun and interesting commander. Elsha and Shiko, I don't even know. Like a Jeskai Spellslinger deck, I think that there are better options, even if you went with like the other Narset, right? Like the Narset, from like either Enlightened Master or Enlightened Exile. Enlightened Exile, probably. Either of those two, I think, are just kind of better commanders, or even like the Narset Jeskai Waymaster, the one that's coming out. I like they look good, but as I said, Shiko Narset just looks like a weaker Stellar Lee with addition of white. Like, so you got white there, which I don't think is going to add a huge amount of stuff. And then Elsha, I think you could do a really interesting deck with it, but it's just a kind of a bit meh in my opinion. So I'd love to hear from you guys as to what you think. Do you think I'm completely wrong? Am I crazy? Are you going to unsub from my channel now? Or, you know, do you think that I'm correct in the ones that I think are most hyped? Which ones of these are you guys most hyped for? I hope you guys had a wonderful day, and goodbye.